Hi, everyone.
Hello there. We're in Ray Franz's chapter, An Appealing Promise Unfulfilled, in Search of Christian Freedom, page 561. This subhead is the fruit of faith. Ray says, the apostle emphasizes three fruitages of God's Spirit as of greatest importance to the Christian: faith, hope, and love. Faith is the very basis for Christianity. On it all else is built. The scriptures themselves teach us to put our faith in God and in His Son. Nowhere in all the scriptures do we find any instruction or encouragement to place our faith in men or in a human system. The apostle states, quote, "For the foundation nobody can lay any other than the one which has already been laid, that is, Jesus Christ. There's nothing to boast about in anything human. Paul, Apollos, Cephas, the world, life and death, the present and the future, are all your servants. But you belong to Christ, and Christ belongs to God." End of quote. And that's from 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verses 11 and 21 to 23 in the Jerusalem Bible. By contrast, the Watchtower publications divert faith from its true object, in a sense, fragment it so that it is not wholly and undividedly directed to and based on God and His Son. They encourage people to put faith in a victorious organization, as the wording on the front cover of the March 1, 1979 Watchtower reads.
An entire book could be filled with examples of their wholesale transferal of scriptural statements made about God and Christ to the visible organization. Earlier chapters of this present book have documented the manner in which loyalty to God is equated with loyalty to the visible organization. Submission to God's direction is equated with submission to the visible organization's direction. Trust in God's word is equated with trust in the word of the visible organization. As also documented, scriptural statements relating to Christ are in the same way appropriated and applied to the organization. It presumes to share with Christ His role of being the way, the truth, and the life. Of all the wrongs evident in the religion, the gravest, I believe, is in this diversion of faith to a human system. The Watchtower organization is not alone among religious systems in doing this, but it certainly presents an outstanding example of assumption, and an assumption that merits the designation of arrogant, of what rightly belongs only to God and Christ.
When persons allow themselves to be led along such a course, the purity of their faith cannot but suffer. Genuine faith becomes adulterated with credulity. The greater the diversion of faith in God to faith in men, the more damaging the results. The trust placed in a human system and its apparent strength can eventually reach the point described at Jeremiah 17, verses 5 to 8, where Jehovah says, quote, "Cursed is the man who trusts in human beings, who seeks his strength in flesh, whose heart turns away from Jehovah. He is like a barren bush in the desert that enjoys no change of season, but stands in a lava waste, a salt and empty earth. Blessed is the man who trusts in Jehovah, whose hope is in Jehovah. He is like a tree planted beside the waters, that stretches out its roots to the stream. It fears not the heat when it comes. Its leaves stay green. In a year of drought, it shows no distress, but still bears fruit." That's from Jeremiah 17, 5 to 8 in the New American Bible, with the word Jehovah inserted where no doubt Lord was in the original.
The more one's faith is centered on a human system, whatever that system may be, the less spiritual that one becomes. There are men who are very religious and yet are essentially unspiritual. They are organization men, not men of faith. Their lives may be filled with activity that brings them organizational approval, backing, and the power that such backing affords. If the organizational backing is removed, their apparent strength disappears with it. Despite their zeal for a religious organization and its growth and prosperity, their lives may nonetheless be effectively barren of those things which bring God's approval and His strength, barren as to the fruitage of His Spirit in spontaneous, inwardly motivated, faith-impelled acts of love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, trustfulness, gentleness, and self-control.
By the way, if you hear some buzzing, it's not your system. It's summer here in Niagara Falls, and
Everybody mows their lawn every day.
The living is no longer easy. Fish are jumping, cotton is high, but our summers are a lot noisier than those days, eh?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So the link that comes to mind immediately here, of course, has to do with the Corinthian example that he brings up in this chapter, that Paul, Apollos, and Cephas, people in Corinth were lining up behind these individual teachers, all of whom were fine teachers,
Mm-hmm.
but they were becoming sectarian.
Yeah.
And so of all the problems in Corinth, this is the problem that Paul wants to address first,
Mm-hmm.
this sectarian tendency to follow men. Now, it's not that the men were demanding it, but not like the Watchtower where they are demanding it. So he rightly makes the case that there are other groups out there, cults we usually call them,
Yeah.
where men are demanding followers.
And I do think that is the big difference. We have to be able to recognize Christianity as compared to cults. Cults have that tendency of highlighting either their own organization or the men in their organization and point you to them. But within modern day Christians, like in our own experience, we have found, for example, no one is disfellowshipped for going to see or listening to somebody from a different denomination to the one that you're attached to. That doesn't happen. So even in the times that we were in two churches, in a United Church, the minister, who had Methodist background, had a reading group that was based on C.S. Lewis, who was Anglican.
Yeah.
And then in the Anglican church that we were attending just recently, they had a Lenten study, and the Lenten study was based on Tim Keller, one of Tim Keller's books, and he's Presbyterian. So this happens frequently. They're not always reading just from their own denomination. They see the value of other teachers. Plus, all denominations have differing strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah.
So it's actually a plus to look at other denominations' comments on different things and reading, have a wide reading. Because then you'll get the best arguments from everybody's positions that you can weigh.
Yeah, I think it's a great point that we have never met a Christian from any denomination disfellowship for attending another church.
No.
Yes, so you can speculate that, well, this discipline's a little lax there, but would you rather have that, or would you rather have the Watchtower's exclusivism?
And it's not a matter of discipline. They don't view it as a threat to them. They don't view it as a mark of unchristian behavior to listen to a teacher from a Christian denomination. There's not this control factor that you have in the Watchtower. Watchtowers just want you to read anybody except their literature.
Because it's all poison.
But you go to the home of a Christian friend and you look at whatever library they have, they're going to have a variety of people on their shelves.
We need to say that's not always been the case, that the Christian denominations have learned, the churches have learned the hard way, that there are strengths and weaknesses in every group.
Yeah.
And yes, there are very obvious strengths in certain denominations, but there are usually a concomitant or or flip side of the strength is some kind of weakness.
Mm-hmm.
And so you see the beginnings of it though in the New Testament. It's not something that's only developed since Satan got his weeds planted among genuine Christians as we imagine it in the Watchtower.
Mm-hmm.
It's in Corinthians and it's in several other places in the New Testament, this tendency to follow men.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll link on your screen a video we did a while back on sex, that is S-E-C-T-S, and sex in Corinth, because those two subjects in the first 5 chapters of Corinthians go together.
Mm-hmm.
There's a fleshliness that's obvious in the carnality of the Gentile converts in this new church in Corinth, but there's also carnality in their going after men.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll put that on your screen. And also a one we did on cults, right?
Yeah, characteristics of cults. Because one characteristic is they'll say, Christ is the way, but we're the way to the way.
So that one's up on your screen as well.
Yeah.
Next time, organization men versus spiritual man.